Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the Shrimp Tank. Usually right here on our Shrimp Tank Radio in the Shrimp Tank studios, but today we'll be doing this via Zoom. I'm with Ted Jenkins. I'm with my co-host here, Lee Heisman, and we'll bring in our guest, Brandon Lee, in just a few minutes, CEO of Yip Yip Technologies, FunnelAmplified. We'll talk about his new book today and much, much more. He's got great stuff to share with you today. He's built companies, sold companies, knows a ton about digital marketing, leadership, and entrepreneurship. So we're excited to talk about that. First time guests, everyone, right here on the Shrimp Tank. We usually interview the brightest and the best CEOs in and around the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and across the United States as well. We've talked to people like Tony Horton, the founder of P90X, people like Jim Ellis at Jim Ellis Chevrolet here. We've talked to the Williamson brothers, one of the biggest sellers of not only barbecue, but barbecue sauce in the state of Georgia. So whether you have a blue collar business or a white collar business in the Shrimp Tank, we get that combination of teaching you around book smarts and street smarts at the same time so you can become a better entrepreneur. This is the way we have to help ourselves. And look, in the economy that we're in right now, what we saw over the last 7 or 8 weeks, the only way that we get these 30 million people who are unemployed back to being employed is going to be on the backs of small business owners. It's not going to be on those Fortune 500 companies. And as always, we're nationally on iHeartRadio, so you can download us in the entrepreneur area of iHeartRadio. We have so many cities across the United States because people love hearing about entrepreneurs. So you can listen to our broadcasts in Seattle, Houston, Los Angeles, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Boston, Boca Raton, Charleston, and many, many other cities. It's just really crazy. Soon we'll be in Canada. We're starting to launch in Canada soon. And as always, catch a replay of all the 200 plus entrepreneurs we've interviewed here in Atlanta at shrimptankpodcast.com. or download us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or anywhere around the internet. Now, Lee, I understand that we have a story today before we get to Brandon and talk to him that we have, as big as the world is, that we have 330 million people that live in this country, that we actually had an entrepreneur here in Atlanta with one of our cities in Seattle, and their intersection has connected.
So it's really strange. Ted is a great guest of ours, a good friend, Rennell Richards here in Atlanta. He runs a podcast. He's a consultant. He runs a podcast and a live show called Business in Bourbon. I was fortunate to be a guest on it down in Buckhead. And Rennell is just a ball of energy, as you know, when you met him. But it's funny, I saw something today and I saw a post, and Rennell is promoting a gigantic live bourbon tasting event, but it's going to be a virtual one where everybody has to bring their own bourbon, of course. Event? Yeah, but he will be at a Kentucky a bourbon facility in Kentucky as well, doing a virtual tour while he has his 5 guests from all over the country coming on. And as I looked at it, and I'm friends with Rennell and I happened to see it, all of a sudden I saw one of our hosts, our Seattle Shrimp Tank host, as a main guest. So I immediately reach out and go, whoa, Dan, are you going to Rennell's show? And the small world, somehow we've created I want to be Kevin Bacon one day. Ultimately, I just want to be in 6 degrees from some way or another. And I reached out to both of them and I said, all right, now I have to listen and watch your show at 5:30 on May 13th. It's called Business in Bourbon Live. It's Rennell's show. One of our hosts, Dan Whedon, out in Seattle, he actually has been doing virtual wine tastings and virtual bourbon tastings for him and his guests. But then it circled back. And what was funny is when I told Dan, clearly, I'm glad that we could connect you with Rennell. Dan told me this morning, you know Rennell? So that was the best part of it. It wasn't a connection. It was pure random. And Dan didn't even know that we were familiar with Rennell. So you're exactly right. It's neat to see all of this come together.
Lee, with these virtual happy hours now, like virtual bourbon tastings, have we identified a way to tell if somebody's virtually drunk, or do we not know that?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, the ride home is probably a few stairs or a second floor to their bedroom. So I think it's a safer move, of course.
Safer.
Much safer. Much safer.
Well, we hope everyone's doing well, and as we know, the economy is opened up here in Georgia, and businesses are up and running again. I think we were the first state, Lee, to actually open up, weren't we?
Yeah, it's true, Brandon. We were going to ask you, and Brandon Lee, founder of Yip Yip, of course, and also FunnelAmplified. We were going to ask you, Brandon, where is the tattoo that you got last Friday, and how did you shoot in your bowling game?
That's pretty good. Well, ironically, in our family, I'm like one of the only people in the family that doesn't have a tattoo between my wife and my daughter. So, I just haven't quite found the thing I want on my body forever. So Yeah.
Well, it was just an excuse to get out last Friday. That was
Right.
the Friday before last, of course. And did you shoot a good bowling game when they opened the bowling alleys up?
You know, I was looking for a place that I could get a small tattoo, bowl, and get my hair cut. That was a big thing for me. It's like, I haven't had a haircut in like 8 weeks. It's driving me nuts.
We were joking that I threw my back out after bowling, Elaine, and I went immediately for a massage down the street. So we were checking all the boxes of everything that opened in Georgia.
Except you couldn't eat anywhere and sit down. You had to get it all to go.
I waited till Monday. Then we did. And for your information, I always share this, that I think it was so newsworthy, and then we'll get into Brandon's business. Was last week we did our fireside chat with Zach Wojon, who has the largest parking company and valet service in the entire Southeast. And I was shocked, intrigued to know that there's a restaurant in Buckhead called Capital City Grill. He also valets for Fogo de Chao. And literally the restaurants in Georgia opened on Monday, the 27th. And on Tuesday, Capital City Grill had 79 reservations that he valeted for. So I will tell you, Ted, to answer your question, everyone in the state was ready, willing, and they are able, and they are moving forward as if there is nothing, because they're just steamrolling ahead outside, reservations, restaurants, haircuts across the board.
Well, it was interestingly, he said that 79 reservations and 79 people drove to Capitol Grill. Not one person did rideshare, and I think people are tired of walking. They want to start driving again. People are used to that here in Atlanta.
You know, Ted, I was driving the other day and I was actually slightly concerned that I was like, whoa, how do I do this? That I swear, for a split second, I had to concentrate because it was a little odd. But my apologies, we're taking time away from Brandon.
Well, Brandon, I know that you've got multiple businesses, and I think I wanted to start with the business FunnelAmplified, because obviously there are a lot of ways to do marketing, but now that a lot of businesses have to convert to a digital way that they're doing marketing, talk to us a little about what FunnelAmplified does and why it's so important for any business, whether it's blue collar or white collar, to learn about how to build a conversion funnel online.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as everything has moved online, and I spent my early career creating, we didn't call them funnels back then, but they were basically funnels, and we used offline methods, right? We used direct mail and then eventually started using landing pages. But, with social media being so prominent, and how many times I've got a window here overlooking downtown Alpharetta, and I watch people walking by all the time, and they're always like this. Right? They're always in their phones, they're scrolling through, and a big part of that is social media. And so this is a place where people are consuming information, they're consuming content. And if you have a team, like influencers know this well, right? And you can see like book launches and Tony Robbins and those types of folks, they're all over social media. But what do you do when you have a distributed sales team? What do you do when you've got 100 people throughout the United States? Do you want all 100 of them to become marketing experts and create content? Or do you want to let somebody centrally in your office create content that's approved and well written, and then share it with the other people so they could turn around and basically look at it on their phone from their company, tap the screen, and it'll publish out into their LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and really help them stay top of mind with their network and help the company amplify their brand, because you got 100 people with thousands and thousands of connections online. Go ahead and utilize that to keep in front of people.
Did you have some joke where you had to use the word amplified? Did you insert that in intentionally?
No, you know what? I think more so the company name is probably because I talk about amplifying content so much. And even before we were doing this online, so back in 2002, 2003, when we were doing this with direct mail, it was still about, you have brand content, you have brand messages, and then you have a bunch of customers that are out there. How do you get it to them in an amplified way that's motivating the sales team to help you get more information out there? So it really is taking that, the brand message, the branding itself, and amplify it through your teammates.
Well, so guys, I know Ted lives in the world of social media. You obviously are the world of social media, and I'm very ignorant, possibly like most of our listeners. Tell me a little bit about Yip Yip and how that's connected. Are they completely separate? They're separate businesses, but is there any intersection or cross-platform work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yip Yip Technologies is the core software platform that we built that helps teams do this. And then FunnelAmplified became one of our white labeled customers. So Yip Yip was designed, and this, takes me back what I created before with web apps. Customers could log in and customize their own content and things. What I realized at the 2012, 2013 is there were a lot of these offline companies, like traditional companies, been around for 30 some years, that were creating direct mail content marketing solutions for teams like real estate, commercial real estate, insurance, wealth advisors, chiropractors, all that, lawyers. And for them to move from these offline print and mail to digital was a big challenge for them. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know how to do it. I talked to one customer of ours who spoke to a dev company that wanted to charge him $2 million to create a web app. And they didn't even know if the web app was going to do for them what they needed to do. And so what I did with Yip Yip was we created a web app technology that allows our customers to private label it so that they can then take a lot of their offline customers and either add a digital component to their offering or even replace their offline offering that they've had before. I'll give you a quick example. One of our customers is called Realty Times, and they're a real estate newsletter business that's been around for over 30 years. And they were just still in the printing newsletters and mailing them, And then startups came in that had no history in real estate, but they had these great technology solutions. And all of a sudden, Realty Times, who was they were a big name in their industry, was just their revenues were dropping quick because they didn't have a digital solution to compete. So with Yip Yip, they were able to very quickly plug in a digital solution that offered their customers social media posting, offered them blogging, content, lead funnels, lead generation, integrated with CRMs. They were able to do that within 30 days, turn it on, and for a lot less money than $2 million.
There are a lot of small businesses because obviously big businesses often have the budgets and they have the money and they have the infrastructure to get this done. But given that so many retailers have been hit now, I call it the strip mall retailer in here, what kind of advice, because I know that, Yip Yip has one of the parts of it is this social selling. Like, how would a small business owner that only has 2 employees or 1 employee and they've got a retail shop, what would you recommend for them to do to just try to get started in this?
Yeah, you know what? I think if you look at the whole digital funnel, you can start with one person, you can start with a small team. And I think really one of the biggest changes that the internet has done, and see if you follow me and tell me if you think I'm crazy. When we were younger, not to age us too bad, but infomercials, right? Did the whole, here's your offer. They'd have some sort of a hook, they'd have an offer and they'd say, but wait, there's more. Then they'd add a bunch of value to it. And then you would have this one low price and you get a whole bunch of stuff.
You get many sham wows.
That's right. You get a whole lot of sham wows. Yeah, you get 3 for $19.95 when the original hook was, this incredible product for $19.95. And then at the end of it, you get 3 of those, a flashlight and a butter knife, right? So, but wait, there's more. But what's happened with that though, is with the internet and with digital funnels is that's really become more of a norm. And whether consumers are realizing this or not, they're buying products that they see have all this additional value to it. So if you're selling a product online and you're just selling it as a product, hey, here, I got this book. You want to buy it? It's $10. But what if I then said something like, hey, I've got this book. It's $10, but actually, if you buy it now, I'm also going to give you the audio version of the book. I'm going to give you the work guide that goes with it. And I'm also going to throw in a PDF of one of my favorite authors, John Maxwell, and one of his books. Now, all of a sudden, I've created so much more value for this $10 book that I get more people to purchase.
There was somewhere, was there not a big story about that they did where, I can't remember whether Harvard did the story about people buying a newspaper and then buying a digital option, and then they would price it out differently. So does pricing matter in here as well? Do a lot of business owners, when they make these funnels, not think about how they create that price value proposition?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that when somebody says I created an offer online and it's not working, I think what they really mean to say for any of us should be our offer sucks, right? It's not that it's not working. We haven't created enough value for people. There's something missing. It could be the way you're phrasing it. It could be the way you're packaging it. But right, if something is not working, you're not selling. Maybe you missed your market. Maybe you're selling to the wrong people. But overall, there's no value. And because people have Google at their fingertips, right, that they're always looking for value, not just the product.
That's very true. And normally at this time, we normally segue into a commercial from J. Smith Lanier, obviously a great insurance company that we've used, and also another commercial later in the show for Adamson Cleveland, a law firm that we recommend. But this format is very different today. So I'm just going to say their names, of course, and not play their, well, we do miss J. Smith Lanier's commercial in their voice, Brandon, clearly.
Since 1946.
Exactly. No, you wouldn't want that. We want people to listen to you, not to tune out. Let's jump into a hot or not section. We're going to run into a hot or not section real quick. And again, very informal because we're in this format. And I am looking forward to meeting you in person, Brandon, once we could be next week anytime. Obviously, I'll stop by the office.
I'm right down the street here on Old Canton Street. So I'm not far away.
Really close by. So jumping into a hot or not, these are bite-sized pieces, of course, that we throw topics out at you and you tell us if it's hot or not. And we talked before, and for the listeners out there right now listening to Brandon, who is so eloquent and well-spoken and a lot of value, there's a reason behind that. And Brandon, you've grown a company to over 100 people and sold it. And you have a company now, as we've seen a few people walking behind you with employees. How important is that environment in your company? And most people will say the word culture. It's beaten to death, but I say environment. How important is that? Is that something that you focus on? Is that hot or is that not?
Oh, that's so hot. I mean, I think one of the things that we say is that culture will trump strategy any day, right? I think you can have a phenomenal strategy. You can have this great go-to-market system planned in place. But if your culture isn't strong and your team isn't in sync and they're not coordinated, they're not trusting each other, they're not encouraging each other, then your strategy is going to fail. So I think that culture piece, having great team members, I'm still a big fan of, wow, that was just totally blanked.
That's all right. It's going to come back.
Yeah, there it is. I'm still a big fan of Good to Great. And one of the big things that I took from that book, and I know there's been an evolution of things and some of those great companies aren't around anymore, but one of the key takeaways for me from that book was my role is to make sure that I have the right people on the bus and I have the people in the right seat on the bus. And I take it a little bit further and say, I make sure that we got a team of people that are working well together on the bus.
I was going to ask you a hot or not in here because I know we want to talk about this a little bit. Is it a good idea for an entrepreneur to write a book? And tell us a little bit about the book that you put together. It was really cool. I saw it on the site. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think it is. And when I wrote my book, it was I had a few people say, because I'm kind of one of these, I'll hear something and I'm like, oh, you know what? And I'll start kind of. Sometimes I give my opinion in areas I probably have not even been asked, but I love strategy. I love when I can see an opportunity, I'll share it with people, and not because there's anything in it for me. I can see it and go, gosh, something you could run with. And so I heard like, hey, I had sold my third company and people were like, have you ever thought of writing a book? And I really hadn't. And my book actually came out. I was doing a consulting project for this company, and they were really struggling with getting their content strategy put in place, their content calendar. And I was like, look, this isn't hard. Content is about answering questions. And they were still kind of confused. So I said, hold on. I raced the whiteboard and I said, look, give me 13 topics that your customers talk about or should talk about. Wrote them up as headers on a whiteboard. And I went to number 1 and I said, what are 4 questions customers are asking or they should be asking? Wrote them all down. And then when we were done, and it took like 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most, I said, Okay, now here's the big question. What is 13 times 4? They're like, what? They go, what is 13 times 4? And the answer is 52. And I said, here's a 1-year-long content curation plan for you. Just answer those questions. Write it, put it on video, speak it. It doesn't matter. Do it the way you want, but just answer those questions. And there's your content, because really content marketing is supposed to be pulling in the right people to you anyway. So answer their questions in advance and stick it on your blog.
Do you want to hold that book up as well, so you can
Sure.
tell us, just so a little bit of a plug here?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So actually, after that day, I thought, I should, drink my own Kool-Aid here. And I was like, that's a horrible expression, isn't it? Never mind. I was like, maybe this is a way I could write my book, because like so many other people that want to write a book, I numerous times sat down and went, okay, I'm going to write a book. And I couldn't get it going. And so I actually wrote this book in like 45 days because I used that format. Now, your question was, should an entrepreneur have a book? I think it depends on what their strategy is, but I know that when I can get on stage in front of a room and talk as an authority, my FunnelAmplified business sells a lot more services. So for me, utilizing the book, utilizing my own content, helping me be, get on events like the Shrimp Tank, be invited here. All of that helps my businesses get more traffic and my team able to, serve more customers.
I got a two-parter for you, Brandon. Okay. The first is, you talked earlier about the format of newspapers and how not only they want the actual physical paper, but they also want a digital copy as well. Do you have an audio for that book?
I do not. I have a PDF version, and then
will you do an audio? And if you did an audio, would you be the voice of it, or would you hire somebody? That's the first part.
Yeah, I think from a marketing standpoint, I would probably want my voice, but I think from a human standpoint, I'd want someone else's voice.
Fair. That's a man with 5 children who probably has been beaten down, Ted, for years. I'm right there with you. I have 3, and Ted does as well. Number 2, more importantly, hot or not, and I know we're finishing up this segment till we get to the fun one, and I think I know your answer here, but I would love for you to elaborate. How important is it hot or not, to give back to the community? Because I know you're highly involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the giving back is so good for the soul, right? And you call it, you get what you give. You call it karma. I don't really care. I think there's just something that makes you feel good about giving back. I think it's also a great networking tool if you want to look at it from that standpoint. I think I've got, actually, I'll share this with you. I haven't announced this yet, but my 50th birthday is coming up at the end of the month. And I'm actually going to do a campaign for a nonprofit in something that's very near and dear to my heart. Entrepreneurship and anxiety, mental illness, depression, all kind of go hand in hand. I've had my own struggles through entrepreneurship and dealing with depression and anxiety. In some ways it comes with the territory. In some ways for me, it stemmed from a lot of my childhood stuff. But that mental illness side, especially for entrepreneurship and for parents, is a big deal for me. So I'm going to actually build out a campaign that I'm doing, celebrating my 50th birthday by actually donating everything, including the campaign and a bunch of funds raised, to a nonprofit that is very near and dear to my wife and I.
You didn't mention any of the nonprofits, Ted, before you jump to the Plead the Fifth. Do you mind mentioning them so people are interested in being a part of something that you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. So the organization that I'm going to be supporting for this one is, it's actually a mental health clinic in Florida called Honey Lake, and it's honeylake.clinic. I'm pretty open with my story that I've spent time there as, stressed out, dealing with, I had to work on some chemical things with my brain that I wasn't aware of. I went down a route of getting some DNA testing and found some things that I don't produce enough dopamine. and my body doesn't naturally do it. No matter how much I was working out, no matter how much I was getting sun and vitamin D, I just had a deficiency with dopamine. And I learned that about me. And so, I think that well, I didn't know we were going on this topic, but if you guys are open to it, I mean,
we love it, man. Dude, by the way, I have to tip my hat to Brandon, Ted. We interview, again, as Ted said, across the country. All of our studios have done over nearly 1,000 interviews. Here in town, over 200 and something. Your ability to express yourself, to be vulnerable, to share this is what our listeners love. So, an entrepreneur, a person out there, I'm learning a lot from you, and I know our listeners are, so I appreciate you being so transparent.
My pleasure. And, my wife and I talk about that, our experiences in entrepreneurship and 5 kids and mental health. And because, as much as I've gone through it, my wife has gone through it with me. And those long, dark nights when you're fighting to grow a company and you don't understand what's going on in your own head, when you think you're nuts and you're looking around the world going, what do I do? Those are long, scary nights. And if we don't talk about it, there's other people out there that are going through it that don't realize that there is help. And I think mental illness, not only in entrepreneurship, but also with men in general. I don't mean that to be sexist by any means, but it's not something we want to admit to. We don't want to show weakness. We don't want, anybody. And that's something that is, makes people vulnerable. And I think that, I'll share this story because one of my roommates when I was there, a friend of mine who became a friend of mine, he ended up soon after leaving, he ended up committing suicide. And that's heart-wrenching, right? Like entrepreneurship, business, raising family, finances, all those things, abuse, whatever. When it leads to suicide, it makes a bigger pain and a bigger mess, right? That person just transferred their pain to a bunch of other people. So we need to help the people that are dealing with the pain. And for me, especially those that I just didn't know I had issues in my brain. I didn't know that I didn't produce dopamine and serotonin. I just thought, man, this stuff's hard. And I just kept pushing until I finally got some help where people said, have you ever? And I didn't. I did some DNA work and all of a sudden, like the whole world opened up.
Amazing.
Well, let's do a quick rapid fire round here, Lee, on the plead the fifth section.
Does Brandon know the rules on plead the fifth?
What?
The rules are you get to plead the fifth one time.
Okay.
We don't want you to plead the fifth.
All right, let's start with the plead the fifth here. Do you think Facebook is intentionally suppressing business pages that do not have a lot of likes on them?
That do not have a lot of likes.
So like if I have a small business and I only have 100 likes on my Facebook business page and I don't advertise with them and I'm putting up all this content on my page,
Yep.
Is Facebook suppressing those from my people that are my friends?
So I think it depends the way you use the word suppress. I think the algorithms are going to say there's certain, Facebook is really focused on having a good user experience so users stay on site longer. So if you post something and no one engages with it, they don't want to show it to a bunch of people that are going to ignore it. But
so the more engagement you get, the quicker it is it gets to the top of the feed.
Right. But the quick answer is yes, they do suppress it because they want to encourage you to advertise.
Right.
Fair. All right, I have one for you, Brandon. You mentioned you have 5 children. This is an easy one. And I need an answer from you instantly on this question.
Okay.
Who's your favorite?
No.
Good answer. I want to see what came to your mind. So they're all equal across the board. It doesn't change during the day.
Oh, no. So we even tell our kids this. I mean, we have seasons where some of them become more of a favorite than others.
Sorry, who's your favorite right now?
Oh, who's my favorite right now? Oh, my gosh. That is so brutal. Okay.
You're allowed to plead the fifth and give in.
No, you know what? I'll tell you right now. My favorite right now is, oh, gosh.
Just do it. Just pull the Band-Aid off.
My favorite right now is Kate, number 2. She's in a good season of life, and she's actually been more engaging with my wife and I over the last few months than she had been before. And I'm just really soaking that up right now.
Shout out to Kate. And the other 4, listen to what Dad says. She's been more engaging. If you want to be the favorite, be more engaging. Go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
Is there any social media channel you won't let your kids be on?
Age appropriate wise, no. Now, our youngest is probably watched movies she probably shouldn't watch and access things earlier than ever because she's just the youngest. But no, they do spend a lot of time on TikTok and Snapchat.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm wondering, because our own Lee Hosman, I have seen him do a TikTok dance, and maybe we ought to have him show him one of these things. But have you done a TikTok dance? Because Lee has done one, haven't you?
Against my will. Yes.
Yes.
I saw you. You were like this or something like that.
It was this, and then a move around thing. There was whatever it was for the family.
You know, it's easier for me to talk about mental health than to dance in public. How's that?
Yeah, I like that. So again, you are an expert, Brandon, in social media. This is your world, right? You're an expert, a digital expert in social media. What advice do you have for our entrepreneurs and our parents out there for how they can guide and potentially help raise their children by either curbing or leading them in a direction? Do you have any recommendations for them?
Yeah, oh gosh, several. So slightly different, but let me answer it this way. Number one we've done with our kids is we tell them pick up the phone and have conversations. So especially our older kids, and they have our three oldest are daughters, and they have boyfriends, and we're like, get on the phone and talk. Don't text, because there's so much lost in text. So that's number one on the one-to-one, the interpersonal relationship side. Number two, I think on social media, we talk a lot about is, everything. I had an article the other day I shared with my kids, and it was a photographer that wanted to show how photography can be manipulated, especially in crowds. So they had on the left side the zoomed in view, and it made like this beach look like there were thousands and thousands of people on it. And then on the other side, they had the side view that showed there were like 10 people across like a 30-yard, 40-yard space, and how that was manipulated. So I do like to take time to show my kids how manipulative social media can be. And one of the sayings we have in our family is, comparison is the thief of joy, right? But really, when we compare, what we end up doing is we compare our true self. What I mean is our internal thinking, our lower self-esteem, our own self-criticism, our own fears. We compare our true self to other people's projected selves. And you're never going to win that. And that's just not a comparison you should ever do. And social media is probably the epitome of best projected self possible.
Ted, I made a note of that. Comparison is the thief of joy. I might make a t-shirt. Is that your words, or did you hear that somewhere?
Oh gosh, I think I've heard it over the years. I don't know. I mean, I'll go look for it and see if I can trademark it real quick.
I want to see if I can put a little name under there. So 2 things before we wrap up, and please tell our listeners, how do they get in touch with you at both organizations? What's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal website is brandonlee.me. And I know we went live and I haven't done this yet, but I'll throw up on there brandonlee.me/shrimp tank. And I'll do that on there if you want. I'll give you a free copy of my book. I ask people just to pay for shipping and handling at $7.95 to throw the book in the mail and give it out to you. Or of course, you can always just get a digital version, but I'll put that up before you re-record this, I guess, or you launch this on the podcast. And then FunnelAmplified is FunnelAmplified.com. And that's where, distributed sales teams, social media marketing, content marketing people, that's our community there. And we'd love to have anyone come join us and share their expertise.
Ted, before you wrap up, I have to say a few things to Brandon. I have thoroughly enjoyed you selfishly. You've been one of my favorites. So wow, I don't say that to all the guests, but it's true. You can ask Ted, you have been one of my favorites. Number one. Number two, the shrimp tank, I know I speak for Ted. We would like to be a part, I think it's Honey Lake, as you said, yes. Down in Florida. We'd like to be a part of that when you turn 50 or when you have the event. Please email us. We'd like to make a donation and be a part of that event that you're doing. I'm just blown away. The comparison is the thief of joy. Being a part of Honey Lake, I'm blown away at everything you've said. I'm learning so much, and I really enjoyed the time with you today.
Well, that's very generous of you guys. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to be a part of it. Thank you so much for having me.
And for those of you that tune into the broadcast, the video here today, and may not have heard the entire interview today, we'll have the recording put back up at shrimptankpodcast.com. You can always download us on iHeartRadio, or just simply go to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, anywhere around the internet, and just download us. And you listen to great entrepreneurs here like Brandon, who sold a business and built multiple businesses. Look, all businesses need marketing, and it is the top of the funnel in this amplified funnel for all businesses, because without new clients coming in the door, you don't have a business. I remember my good friend Fran Tarkenton once said to me, he said, without sales, there's no business. So you got to have sales, and to have sales, you have to get new clients. So check out Yip Yip Technologies, Funnel Amplified, read Brandon's book. All these things can make you a better entrepreneur and a better leader that will lead to more top line revenue, more profitability, and a higher retention of your employees down the road. So Brandon, thanks so much for coming on the program today. And thanks of you for joining us here on a Monday afternoon, live on video right here on the Shrimp Tank.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.